Great. So also warm welcome from my side. My name is Susanne Durst. As you see, this session is dedicated to specific characteristics of digital education. And you will see we are talking about specifically 3 characteristics, which are flexibility, scalability, and accessibility. You will also see, considering that we have only started with this online training, that we will address these characteristics from a broad perspective. When we are moving forward in our online training, you will see that we will address digital education from different perspectives, from different groups of stakeholders. But now we are still more or less in the warm-up environment, in the warm-up stage. That's why it's still kept at a very general level. So the main idea behind this session is to engage ourselves in more depth with, as said before, flexibility, scalability, and accessibility. I think it's okay, it's good if we are going back to one of the central concepts or the central terms of these of the PRODIGE project, but also this training, which is digital education. And you see, I'm bringing us back, all of us back, to the definition of digital education. And as you have learned before, I guess you know that at certain levels already from your past and your previous experience, the digital education can be considered as a very broad term that covers, that incorporates a number of technologies that were developed for improving education and learning in a digital environment, with the ultimate goal of empowering different types of students with their different expectations, their different needs and requirements, so that their learning journey is a good one. Successful one might be a bit too strong, because we never know what actually is meant by a successful learning journey, because we also know it's very much in the eye of the beholder. And so digital education uses these different types of technologies, very often supported, empowered by platforms, as we have learned, also other virtual learning rooms, environments, a huge number of tools to make this learning happen. And in some, we can also mention that digital education, compared to the education we, maybe the majority of the audience in this session, have experienced. So now we can actually address education from a more flexible point of view. It takes into consideration our specific preferences, as a learners, and also our inclinations. Here you see we tried to link photos with or images with a specific characteristics. This session is about flexibility, as we have learned, as you have stressed also before, is about trying to meet the different learners' expectations and needs. Then there is, as you know, these a topic specifically from the field of business, scalability. So what does it mean actually for an organization here, let's say a higher education institute, reaching more learn, but at the same time, as has been mentioned by you before, also making sure that it's not only about numbers, so in terms of quantification of education, but still making sure that the quality is also addressed. And then accessibility, so that we use digital education and what is possible through digital education, specifically the technology, the solution, etc. As we have addressed before, how can we maybe include students, person with specific learning disabilities better in what we are doing. And we will start with going a bit deeper into flexibility. So flexibility is, as you have mentioned already before, flexibility is maybe primarily addressing the learner, because now it seems that we are coming closer to this idea that personalized learning is going to be possible. I, as a learner, can develop, extend skills, competences in specific areas, specific disciplines of interest, and I can actually, at least in theory, I can set my own pace for this learning experience. At the same time, this is closely related to learning with my own pace, on my own purse. I can do this learning anytime, anywhere, so it doesn't matter where I am in the world, what kind of profession I'm pursuing. So I'm no longer, let's say, excluded from my wish. It might be an internal wish or an intrinsic wish. It might be an extrinsic wish to continue with my learning. So coming back to what Iva mentioned before, to this idea of this lifelong learning, so that learning is not only something that is limited to the younger generations, but also the older. We have learned this, we know this, that also we as more mature working professionals, we also need to make sure that we constantly update and renew our understanding of our specific profession, understanding of specific skills and competences, and definitely also learn some new from scratch. And then you see we also have these diverse learning modalities. I guess you all know this from your own study time, from your own time at school. We have learned over the years that some forms, some formats simply work better for us. Some people are better in listening, some people are better in reading stuff, and some people need a kind of a combination of these modalities. And with digital education and what is possible from a theoretical point of view, at least, then we can say we as a provider of education, higher education, have now access to an toolkit we could offer. At the same time, we as a learner have also now access to a kind of a portfolio of different types of learning formats we can actually pick in order to facilitate our learning journey. And definitely, we should also look into additional examples. You have, thanks for this, you have mentioned a couple of examples already, how you are doing currently digital education, having these three characteristics in your mind, or what is currently hampering the application of specific tools due to the regulatory framework, due to the rules. But let's, because as mentioned before, we are still in this kind of warm-up situation, and we try to think kind of broad. Let's think about what is possible, and maybe then we will see how it could later also fit developing regulatory frameworks in Georgia, but also in other parts of the world. And you see, when we are talking about flexibility, and this was also something raised by you, what we see in an increasing number of universities is that they turned to modules or independent units. So they offer the opportunities of different types of students and their expectations. So meaning that maybe not all students are still or longer interested in studying an entire degree, but they might only be interested in studying very specific modules because, let's say, in their workplace they have learned that they need these kind of skills. They need to update their skills in order to proceed, in order to perform with their job, not only today but also in the immediate future. And if we are thinking of one concrete example of these modular course structures, think about the situation. We represent a university that offers a master program in data science, and then this master program would be divided into several modules or several independent units, and a student, a potential student, a prospective student could actually start with taking individual modules of this master program. Let's say a module about statistics for data science, something related to advanced AI techniques, then later on combines these modules and earns, for having completed these modules, a professional certificate. And then, depending on the situation of this learner, and specifically also the expectations and also the resources and time available, maybe later, eventually, this person complete also the remaining modules of this master program and earns in the end a degree. If we are moving to asynchronous learning, I guess you all are familiar with that. Now, specifically, COVID-19 has boosted this kind of situation, that now an increasing number of lectures are also recorded. So students get this opportunity to watch the content of these sessions again, or for the first time. Definitely, when we are thinking of asynchronous learning, we could also think about the different online assignments, quizzes we are offering, immediate automatic feedback can be provided, and definitely also peer reviews could be offered, depending on how the course, how the program is structured, and definitely also collaboration and communication within smaller groups of people, within maybe the entire group of the class would be possible. And then also, as we have learned before, this is typically supported, facilitated by these mobile platforms, so these learning management systems. And here also we have numerous systems available. I guess you know them: Blackboard, Moodle, Canvas, and so forth. And at the same time, when we are thinking of these mobile platforms, then definitely we could also think about Khan Academy, so something that has been running for a couple of years, but also MOOCs has been mentioned. These platforms that run under MOOCs like Coursera. Then we have Duolingo, which could also be considered as a platform to help students learn a new language or extend their language, and also Quizless, you name it. And of course, we shouldn't forget it also digital libraries, because students might also be interested in developing their skills and competences as a researchers, and then still they should have access to these libraries, the databases, and then also ebooks in order to complement, in order to supplement their learning journey. Good. From there, we can actually turn to scalability. And here you see, as has been mentioned also before, scalability is a direction which assumes in a way that organizations, including higher education institutes, regardless if we are talking about a public university or a private university, is interested in growing, so accepting more learners, learners that are not only located in the specific city, in a specific region, country, but maybe also in the neighboring countries. And we have many examples of universities who also try to reach a global group of learners. At the same time, I guess you know this too, there is this kind of idea that these effects of scalability actually helps students or universities to increase the number of enrolled students, but at the same time, the cost or the resources needed for adding a new student is, let's say, hold or capped at a proportional is capped at a rational level, so that the cost of doing this are not exploding. So we can say, based on this, that scalability, if the university is interested in it, and also coming back to this quality aspect, also expects that by broadening the group of learners, that we can still somewhat facilitate that quality is also assured. Not only we have an increase of student numbers, so wider reach will become possible. And definitely this is an issue, regardless if we are talking about scalability. Any organizations, including higher education institutes, education, being universities, should make sure that the scarce resources, financial resources, human resources are used in the best possible way. And definitely we could say, by taking advantage of the also constantly developing learning management systems, we are relieving specifically the instructors, the teachers from several administrative tasks, and all of us who are teaching specifically, who are having the big classes. We know that the grading part is typically a nightmare, and now we have functions available that are actually relieving us a bit from these kind of grading activities, and also depending on the situation information in the university, in the specific programs, courses, also attendance tracking. And at the same time, or as a consequence of this, we have more time for teaching, for engaging our students into discussions, dialogues, reflections, etc. pp. And definitely, we know this has always been an issue at universities. It might also make easier the constant update of our courses, modules, programs, and the content could also be easier replicated for new types of learners, etc. Also here, as before, let's have a look into a couple of examples. As mentioned before, there are these MOOCs, abbreviation of Massive Open Online Courses. We know these MOOCs have been in place for many years, as we also know that, and it has been mentioned before, that many of these courses are not really completed. Now, the student starts this. I can talk about myself. Very often I have started these kind of courses offered by whatever kind of university, and then also provided whatever kind of book platform I started, but then I didn't finish it because apparently something was missing. Then we have these virtual classrooms. This is also being used by an increasing number of universities, study programs or courses. I did it, for example, in a course related to strategic management, and I brought together my students with students at a university in Hong Kong, studying also strategic management, and we had the groups work on a specific case, a very specific country case, and then we tried to engage the students in the different countries to share their experience, to share their learning experience, and definitely also share the outcomes of their activity. And then the other side, the other group of students was asked to provide feedback. And then you see here, you see we use the pyramid more or less. So at the foundation we have this learning management systems. We also know there are the majority of them are cloud-based, which of course also raise certain kind of questions. We will address these in another seminar that is, or in another session that is part of this online training. Here, just for you, hopefully the link is working. So at least my link is working. Hopefully this is working with you as well. And now you see, now you are seeing a website, the website by Coursera. And Coursera is just one example of an organization that is very active, not only in bringing together universities, but also bringing together different types of learners. And definitely, if we would now put on the hat of a university, collaborating or partnering with an organization like Coursera might be a way to actually extend the portfolios, the courses, the modules we can offer to our students. So it's more or less what we are talking about here, as you know, a strategic partnership of universities with actors from the private sector. From there, if okay for everyone, we could turn to accessibility. And accessibility, this is more or less and we have also learned by going back to what you mentioned in this regard, that accessibility is something, let's say, the majority of universities are trying to address, but at the same time, it's also kind of challenging. Accessibility comes closer to this idea of inclusion, so that we are providing access to high quality education, not only to those students or those group of people who have the necessary resources, but also with those who are, for whatever reasons, are facing different types of barriers. And here you have a list of barriers. So accessibility, if it can be realized, and we can also imagine that our approach to accessibility is likely to be a step-by-step process, because we have to take into consideration the specific settings, the specific context of our very educational institution, but of course also the situation at the regional level, at the country level. And still, I guess you will agree with me, it is definitely something we should address. And unfortunately, the pandemic has shown us immediately what it means if due to a pandemic like we experienced, what this could mean for people who are exposed to these barriers, and they are continued learning. So we can really say they were left behind, and they are still suffering from the consequences of this situation. So accessibility is about inclusion. If we are going back to the scalability aspect, it could mean global inclusion, but also, as mentioned before, let's start maybe at a more plausible level, so that we are trying to include as many students as possible in our specific region, in our specific country. It helps us to support people, human beings with disabilities, and you see, by taking advantage of the opportunities offered by the increasing number of digital education tools and techniques, we can actually make also education of quality, or with quality, affordable at lower cost. I'm not saying we all know this. We are not talking about no cost, but we are talking about low cost. And here also, as before, talking about accessibility, when we are talking about accessibility, often we are talking about marginalized groups. And here you see, I have selected a picture of women. We still know that depending on where we are in the world, women are exposed to harsher accessibility issues compared to their male counterparts, but we also know there are other marginalized groups. So we are trying, by focusing on accessibility, to make sure that we are trying to give everyone more or less a chance to excel. And so at the left-hand side of this slide, you see some examples. Assistive technologies. You also know, when we are talking about innovation in health, we also see an increasing a number of technologies that is dedicated for elderly, so that they can still be part of a society. And definitely we could also transfer this to education, because we know that it's still this kind of situations that education, being an educated person, opens the door to have a voice, a stronger voice, hopefully, and it opens the door to being an active and proactive members of society. Focusing on accessibility also gives us an opportunity, we have addressed this before, that we can offer digital education materials that is taking into consideration the specific content, so the local context, so it can easily be translated and adapted so that it fits the specific requirements. And we are typically going beyond languages, but definitely language is an issue, but here specifically cultural differences. And you see, the good thing is nowadays also that the solutions available are also functionable in regions of our specific countries, regions in the world where we know that the internet connection is still not the best one, and we simply have to deal with low band with connection. And we also know that this situation won't change soon, but still we would like to provide access to education.
In this session, we will examine 5 global digital education models from Estonia, Finland, USA, UK, and Australia. And as usual, why we are analyzing these global models, and these are case studies and the blueprints for the transformation. First, we must understand innovation, how nations like Estonia, for example, rebuild societies through digital governance, how Finland united competing institutions, and how individual learners worldwide access life-changing opportunities. Second, to identify scalable strategies, proven approaches that Georgia can adapt, whether adaptive learning for STEM retention or virtual tools bridging rural divides. Third, to answer critical question, what principles drive the success abroad and how do we translate them here? And of course, this insight without action is incomplete. After exploring these 5 models, you will work in teams to dissect one example through Georgia's lens. For instance, we might consider, when we study Estonia's case, what systematic, Estonia or Finland's case, what systematic or regulatory challenges might block collaboration between our universities, whether do our existing practices align with ASUS adaptive learning, how might Tbilisi and regions like Grela adapt UNCW's virtual fieldwork differently. So your task at the end of this presentation is to map gaps, uncover opportunities, and propose actionable partnerships, so we can turn these global lessons into Georgian solutions. If you are ready, let's begin. So we can start from the slide 3 about Estonia. In 1996, when most nations viewed the internet as novelty, Estonia launched Tiger Leap, a program to connect every school within a decade. And by 2020, in under 5 minutes, 95% of citizens filed taxes online via the e-tax board. 95% of the schools, they adopted solution eCall, a platform for managing grades, attendance, and the parent-teacher communication since 2002, which is long before the COVID made remote learning urgent. Free Wi-Fi, public Wi-Fi covers more than 1,000 locations, including remote areas. Yet Estonia's success, we believe, lies in digital literacy. Preschool coding with robots, teacher training programs like PRODIGE, and the free IT courses for adults As a result, 91% of the internet adoption and 2% of the GDP are saved annually from bureaucracy. And this is the example that we can consider from the society level. And what we can say that Estonia's journey teaches us that when we make some transformations at the society level, it of course translates to the higher education as well. And it teaches us that sustained investment in the infrastructure and the curriculum reform, starting from even coding from primary school, can turn digital governance from aspiration to the reality. And some questions for you to consider later for the team assignment. How could Georgia's digital governance strategy align with education to replicate, for example, Estonia's seamless public service model? Or what rural connectivity challenges might hinder the nationwide adoption of platforms? This is food for thought, and now let's move to Finland, and let's journey north to Finland, where 37 universities and applied science institutions did the unthinkable. They stopped competing and started collaborating. And under Digivisio 2030, they are still building, a shared digital ecosystem where a student in Helsinki crafts a degree blending AI courses from Aalto University and sustainable design models from Lapland, from different institutions from different parts of the Finland, and all tracked through tools like Exam Visit for remote exams. And this is in sci-fi. By 2030, Finland's united platform will let learners mix and match courses national, which means that they are moving from these university entities to the learner approach, and the learners are picking and choosing different type of courses from different universities of Finland, and as a result learning their competences and degrees. And then here we can see that the secret is the interoperability, where we see that shared authentication systems, tools like RIPA for data exchange, quality audits, they're ensuring every institution meets the EU standards. And at the same time, we have to admit that Digivisio isn't about just tech, it's about redefining the purpose. Courses now integrate AI analysis for literature students and virtual labs for biologists, all while aligning with Finland's 2027 digitalization policy for ethics-driven education. What we can ask in our case, and also for the teamwork that we have later, could, for example, TSU, GSU, and ATSO, for example, share courses on a national platform? And could we adopt Finland's model of cooperation over competition to build a united digital front of education? Okay, these are the questions. And now let's move to the third model. As you see, we are moving from the society level to the individual examples, individual success models. Now we move to the university level, and here I am offering you visiting the deserts of Arizona and go to the Arizona State University, where professors, I think not only in Arizona State Universities, but worldwide, they notice a troubling trend. Students are failing introductory STEM courses, not due, for example, to ability, but because traditional lecture rooms, big rooms, they cannot address individual gaps. And the solution that they offered was the flipped classroom. So before lecture, students use AI-powered platforms like Alex to master concepts at their own pace. And as a result, when they come to the class time becomes a collaborative workshop where instructors guide problem solving and they don't deliver monologues. The results stunned even skeptics. Calculus 1 pass rates soared to 80% and withdrawal rates cut in half. And here we can say that this model's power lies in its simplicity. Technology handles repetitive drills and humans focus on mentorship. Adaptive tools can also be transformative in our cases, where STEM dropout rates, of course, is high in everywhere we go, in all worldwide. The questions to consider for the teamwork and overall is which high attrition STEM courses like calculus or physics would most benefit from adaptive tools, and what training would the Georgian instructors need to adopt like these flipped classroom models. Okay, and we are having last two examples. Um, so let's start from this UNSW. This is the university which is located in Australia, University of New South Wales. And here, geology students once faced a dilemma. Field trips to study rock formations were very costly and exclusionary. Students working in night shifts, they cannot afford to spend, for example, weeks in somewhere in the countryside. And as a result, they introduced this Thalia, a platform that lets educators build immersive virtual field trips for a fraction of the cost. And students will use VR headsets to explore these Utah canyons or simulate Mars terraforming, and they can collaborate in real time despite being continents apart. And studies show that this kind of virtual trips can teach critical thinking as effectively as physical ones. And in our case, what we can learn from here, for Georgia, imagine archaeology students excavating, for example, excavating ancient coal sheet sites in 3D, or medical students practicing surgeries in virtual operating rooms. Technology exists, the challenge is prioritizing this adoption. And the questions to consider for the teamwork: which Georgian discipline, geology, archaeology, medicine, urgently need virtual fieldworks? And if, for example, if it's archaeology, could museums like Georgia National Museum partner with universities to digitize these heritage sites? And the last example and the last question to ask at the end is the maybe coming from the university, from society to university, and now we are coming to the degree. And then here I am giving maybe more of the very ambitious but the online bachelor's program in computer science from the University of London. And this shows how institutions are using technology to reach learners anywhere in the world. And they developed this degree with Coursera. So by reshaping the access to the quality education, key to success is that University London's academic rigor is combined with the Coursera's global platform, and as a result, they can align closely with the workforce demand and preparing graduates for careers in high-growth fields like AI and cybersecurity. And the questions to ask ourselves at the end of this workshop is: what local industries could benefit from such tailored online programs? Is it tourism or IT? Could partnerships with global platforms help bridge regional disparities here? Should MOOCs prioritize, for example, Georgian language content, or focus on English for example, global reach? Another question can be: could Georgia partner with Coursera to co-design credentials for regional workforce needs?